At a congressional hearing last week, financial industry representatives pushed for legislation that would chip away at consumer protection rules governing the three major credit reporting bureaus. Loosening those regulations would provide economic stability by capping the industry's exposure to class action claims, a trade group official testified. Hours later, one of the three bureaus, Equifax, disclosed a major data breach, which has potentially compromised the sensitive personal data of more than 143 million Americans. Capitol Hill is now demanding answers about the cyber attack. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Federal Trade Commission, and at least 6 state attorneys general have opened investigations. While authorities and consumers are calling for action, the push is unlikely to translate into new rules or legal curbs. The credit bureaus have for decades successfully fended off calls in Congress for more oversight, despite warnings about potential problems that go back to Senator William Proxmire, a Wisconsin Democrat, in the 1960s. Now, the industry is likely to find support in the agenda of President Trump, who has pledged to strip away burdensome business regulations. Regulators aren't likely to fill the void. The FTC, which oversees data protection, can't dole out big financial punishments. While the Consumer Bureau has shown a willingness to take on the industry, the agency is mainly focused on the accuracy of the data and the products that are sold to consumers. I have no reason to believe that this Congress has the capacity or will to actually legislate on those issues, said Isaac Boltanski, an analyst at Compass Point Research and Trading. The most we could see passing is targeted legislation aimed at enhancing consumer protections following identity theft. For years, consumer advocates have pressed for stricter oversight of the credit bureaus and stronger privacy rules governing all companies. One often pursued goal is a federal privacy law mandating notifications to those whose personal information has been compromised, as well as meaningful financial penalties for lax data protection. While 48 states have passed security breach notification laws, calls for a nationwide standard have repeatedly fizzled. And Equifax has been a powerful force in the legislative and regulatory arena. Equifax spent $1.1 million on lobbying last year, up from $300,000 in 2006, according to data collected by the Center for Responsive Politics. The Credit Bureau recently lobbied on a range of cybersecurity issues, including data security and breach notification, data breach response and identity protection, and cybersecurity threat information sharing. Equifax lobbied on 2 bills under scrutiny at last week's House hearing, including one called the FCRA Liability Harmonization Act. The 6 proposals discussed at the hearing, all introduced by Republicans, would amend, and often scale back, a variety of consumer protection laws. The various proposals would ease certain mortgage lending rules, narrow the scope of debt collection restrictions, and limit corporate liability by capping financial penalties for violations of the FCRA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Meredith Griffanti, a spokeswoman for Equifax, said the company works to ensure that new legislation captures the benefits of credit reporting to the U.S. economy, as well as the effects of certain regulation on the financial system. We believe in fair industry regulation, she added, and advocating for policies that protect consumers' rights, as well as the integrity of the consumer data industry. Congress has sounded warnings for decades. In the 1960s, a series of congressional hearings pulled the secretive industry into a public spotlight. Aggrieved customers, academic experts, and industry insiders spoke out about how the vendors, including Equifax, then known as the Retail Credit Company, amassed files filled with intimate personal information on millions of people. The bureaus hired thousands of investigators to ferret out details on subjects' financial habits and their moral character, according to the hearings. Drinking, philandering, or simply having a dispute with a gossipy neighbor could lead to black marks. Those credit files, which helped determine who could get a business loan, rent an apartment, or even land a job, were available for purchase by any creditor. But they were kept hidden from the subjects themselves. Senator Proxmire was a vocal critic of the power and the secrecy of credit bureaus. Without strict oversight, He thought the industry might be tempted to cut corners on data protection. Tight security standards are expensive, he said during congressional testimony in 1969. Since credit bureaus are almost entirely responsive to the needs of business and have little responsibility to consumers, it is difficult to see major expenditures on security systems in the absence of public